Hope everyone's having a good afternoon so far. Today we are going to be covering creating and sending emails. This is going to be a fairly introductory, but I am going to deep dive into the creation of emails. So even if you have used our email editing tools and sending tools in the past, hopefully I have some tips and tricks for you today. But this is going to be a pretty high level overview of just the setup and sending a successful email template to your constituents. So like I said, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to just go ahead and dive in. So here's our agenda for today. We were going to do a little bit of setup, just what is SPF? What's that mean for your emails and your organization? We're going to cover email interest real quick, along with the email list page and organizing your email templates. And then the meat of today will be creating and editing and sending and scheduling emails. And then I'm going to try to save some time for email tracking and some reporting, along with some questions at the end. So let's get started. And just last thing, if you do need assistance after we're done with today's Academy class, as far as getting anything set up or having issues with email, feel free to click the question mark icon at the top of your toolbar, and then there should be a help and video section, along with there's email and live chat to our wonderful support team. All right, so I'm going to move over to my demo database, and we are going to get started here. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so everyone should see my demo dashboard here. I'm going to zoom in just a touch. Okay. So to get started with creating and sending emails, first we're going to overview just where to locate that. It's going to be here in this left sidebar. There is this @ symbol, and then you're going to see email templates, engagement surveys, and email settings. We're going to spend a majority of our time in email templates. Engagement surveys, we're not going to be covering this today, but we do have a separate class about donor engagement surveys and how to best use those with your constituents. And in email settings, and let's start here. This is some of the just preliminary items to get you set up for success. So you notice if you click on email settings, you'll have 3 tiles here: email interest, deliverability, and MailChimp integration. Once again, this is going to be a separate class for MailChimp integration, so we're not going to cover that today. But let's start with email interest. So I click edit. Here you're going to see a list of your current email interests. You might not see these exact ones. There are some default ones that come with your database. If you've messed with these and changed these, you should see the ones that you've customized. Email interests represent different categories, and it's something that tends to get a little bit of confusion brought up around them and how to use them properly. I encourage you to use email interests more of a broad definition. So rather than like every individual email campaign that you're sending out, like October newsletter, June newsletter, or May volunteer update, but rather keep them broad topics, just volunteering or newsletters in general. Notice I made one for just Giving Tuesday. That way you can kind of lump all of these interests together. They are constituent facing, so you want to make sure they make sense to your recipients as to what they are signing up for. These are the interests that every recipient is allowed to opt in or opt out of. So you want to make sure they make sense to your constituents. So for example, if someone was to opt out of an email, if I click preview here, this is something like this they will see after they click opt out, and they could choose to either unsubscribe from all email interests, or they could select a custom list of what they are interested in subscribing to, or they could continue to opt into all. As well as this list, you can choose to deactivate email interests. So if there's some that you're no longer using, you can simply click this blue arrow, edit, and then that should bring up the ability to edit the name or deactivate right there. All right, now let's jump to deliverability settings. So I go back to email settings and then deliverability settings. All right, so everything in green is required if you see that in the database. So on this page, all these fields are required. These sections pull from your organization settings. So if you've already filled those out, then Some of these may be pre-populated, but you will need all of this information before you send your first email. This is just so your constituents know where it's coming from, and it is required according to the Canned Spam Act that was passed, in which you need to send organization info in that detail to your recipients. So make sure this is filled out. And then notice there is a section right here and a link for configure your domain. So if I click on this link, it will take me to our help article for setting up SPF. SPF in the broadest sense is to authenticate your email domain. So for example, my work email is scott.moran@bloomerang.co. So if I wanted to send an email using the bloomerang.co, I need to make sure it's authenticated, or that's set up, the SPF is set up correctly to be sent through Bloomerang. So if you follow these steps, I won't go into detail today because again, we don't have too much time as for some of these steps today, but this is something that would be fantastic if you're stuck to email our support team. They'd be happy to walk you through this process. But if you do in a nutshell, if you want to send an email to your constituents with your custom domain, so maybe that's @Bloomerang, or if it's @Boys and Girls Club of so-and-so.com, you need to make sure that your SPF is set up for Bloomerang email. So that is this help article. And again, that can be found through this link right here on the deliverability settings page. Okay. Now let's get to email templates. So if I click on the email section again and email templates, this is going to bring up our entire email list page. So you'll notice there's a couple different options for sorting up here. I can search through my templates just by typing in here. So if I want to find maybe like ones that have newsletter in the title, I can find them here. I can search through active and inactive, my Bloomerang email templates, as well as if I want to just see my MailChimp ones that are part of the MailChimp integration. That's covered in our MailChimp class as well. And I can also click show more filters, and I can filter based on the status. This is really helpful if I want to see the ones that have already been sent or are currently scheduled to send, the type, whether it's a constituent, a transaction, or an interaction type email template, as well as the purpose or the email interests that are applied, as well as the users that have modified or created. You'll notice on each row here, there is the template name, as well as some information as to when it was last modified or the last action that was taken upon it, as well as here I can see the user that took that action, the purpose, and finally the type of the email template that's being used. And if notice if I click these blue down arrows, I have a few more options here. I can edit. This will do the same actions. If I just click on the template itself, it'll take you right to the designer. I can copy. This is a great tool if you have something that's sent on a recurring basis and has just a few items changed. You could copy that template, have everything saved, and then maybe make some minor tweaks and changes to it. Preview, this will send you right to the preview email screen if you just want to review right before sending. And finally, deactivating the email template if you want to just clean up this page that you're viewing. And if you haven't used our email editor before, you won't see any templates on here. And instead of new, you should see create your first email template. But to get started, we'll click new up here. And you notice there's three options. There's starter templates, Giving Tuesday, and MailChimp. We won't be covering the MailChimp templates today. We have starter templates. I'll just show you this page real quick. This has some starter designs that are different types of emails. So there's constituent, transaction, interaction, just some starter guides and some placeholder text just to kind of kickstart your design process. Today, I wanted to show off our Giving Tuesday template. So if I click new and then Giving Tuesday template, we have 5 templates here that are varied in their purpose. So for example, this one is a save the date. So to send ahead of time, just to get build excitement with your audience about getting involved with Giving Tuesday activities, as well as a Giving Today email template a post Giving Tuesday thank you, as well as one that you might consider sending just to your monthly or to solicit a monthly giving program. So for today's class, let's click on this Save the Date template. So I'll click here, and right away it's going to pull up the Design tab. And let's start here with this tab, these three tabs up here. So there's Design, Filter, and Details. So if I click Details, notice everything in green is required. So I'm going to need to give this all of these fields information. So on this left side, this is everything that's internal. So this will be the name of the email template itself. So maybe just save the date template. Purpose, I'm going to just say impact, and email interest, I'm going to just assign the Giving Tuesday email interest. And then allow blank merge fields. We're going to cover this later in depth, but essentially, do you want to allow merge fields to be blank if it's sent to a constituent that has no information for that merge field? On the right side, this is what will be recipient facing or donor facing. So the subject line. So here's maybe I do want to just put save the date, maybe Giving Tuesday. And then the from name, this will be the name that appears in their inbox. So say the subject from, I'll just put my name. And then the from email, this will also be the email, if they click reply, this will be the email that will receive those replies. Okay, so once we have those filled out, I'm going to click filter. Filtering is choosing the audience that you want to send your email. And there are, notice that right now I'm starting with constituent filters. So this is starting with every constituent, I should say active constituent in my database. So notice this says 391 constituents found. So the type of email, you've probably heard me say multiple times now, the difference in the type of email you select is the results of your filters. So in this case, I'm starting with 391 constituents, and I can filter based on I have constituent filters here. So for an example of using a constituent filter, maybe I want to send to all of my Indiana donors. I could click add filter. I could look up has addresses. I want my specific address, and then underneath address filters, click add filter. I'm gonna look for state, and we're gonna select Indiana. I'm also gonna click green and next to Indiana and do is primary, because I want to make sure their primary mailing address is Indiana. Click OK. All right, so now you can notice that this dropped from 300 plus down to 49. So this tells me I have 49 constituents in my database that have a mailing address that is Indiana. So currently these are my Indiana constituents. But let's say I wanted to send something a little more specific. Maybe I want to send an update about volunteer activity, and I want to include their interactions, maybe the hours that they volunteered. I would need an interaction type email template. So what I can do is click change filter type over here, because I don't need constituent filters. I would need an interaction filters. So I'll click change filter type. This box will pop up and ask, what would you like to change your filter to? I'm going to select interaction. Notice it's going to clear out my filter I had up here, because now I'm starting with new filters. But I want to notice these, it's instead of 391 constituents found, now I'm starting with the 2,000 plus interactions found. So now I'm filtering the interactions in my database. So you will see multiple names down here because a constituent can have multiple interactions on their timeline. It's not going to send to that constituent multiple times, but rather these are just the interactions you're going to be including in that email, if that makes sense. So let's say I wanted to send to everyone who had volunteer activity this year. I could click add filter. I could look up volunteer hours volunteered here. And let's just say I'll do between 1 and infinity. So this is for all time. Let's just, I just want only this year. So I'll do date is during this year. Might not have too many. I haven't updated this in a hot second. Let's do last year. Let's see if there we go. No one has volunteered my demo database here. So if I just stick with my volunteers total, here we go. So all of my volunteers in my database. So this is anybody, any interaction that has at least 1 hour of volunteering. So I have 78 interactions here. So this would be if I wanted to include volunteer hours in that email sending. Let's just see what a transaction filter looks like. So I click change to transaction. Now, instead of interaction filters, I'm going to have transaction filters. So I should be starting with different numbers. So now these are every transaction in my database, excluding soft credits and those that belong to inactive deceased constituents. But let's say I want to just send to a certain fund. So I'll click fund. Maybe it's just a health and research fund. So now this is all my transactions that have been marked with the health and research fund. And you can see those down here. Notice there's multiple names next to John Smith. But these are all of my health and research transactions. So what I could do, for example, is send to John Smith a list of all of his transactions for the year, if I wanted to. Let's just go back to a constituent filter, just for an example. So if I keep this with no filters, essentially I'm sending to every active constituent in my database as it is now. So I'm going to leave this how it is. And now let's jump to the design tab. So I'll click here on design. The template is already going to have some pre-filled text. Our product and marketing team has helped create and craft these this filler text here to really kind of jumpstart just some of the verbiage you should be sending and that we encourage to send to your constituents. So you'll notice that there's some placeholders here such as where to put in your organization name, add a link to your donate page. Let's just have a quick overview of the designer. So you notice here in this designer, there are these 3 tabs, notice right here: content, rows, and settings. So if I click on settings, these are your global options is the way I put it. So these settings will affect the entire template, not just one element of your email. So for example, by default, it's set to 500 pixels wide, but if I wanted to send maybe a wider email for some reason, if I wanted to have it fit just a wider span of their screen, I could increase the size, and notice it's going to be stuck within this container, but in their inbox, it would carry over as long as their viewpoint is set below this number. But usually you want to keep these on the lower side, just as a best practice, somewhere between 400 and 600 pixels. Otherwise, you're going to get some overlap in their email inboxes. So I'm just going to keep this at 500 for now. Notice there's some content alignment, so I can choose whether the entire email is shifted left or center. I can affect the background color if I want to apply the entire background color to a green or transparent. I'm going to keep this as white. There's also hex codes here, so if there is certain branding colors and guidelines that your organization adheres to, you can add those hex codes here. The content area background, so instead of just the background, notice if I click this to a dark blue, instead of the entire email filled, it's just what is behind the content. So just so we can all see, if I do the background of green, this is where the background will stop, and this is the content area background will overlap. So in this case, I'm going to keep them both white. There we go. Here's where you have your default font. So you can change these to a different, if you want a serif or sans serif, I'll keep this at Arial. And then link color. So if you add any hyperlinks to your email template, what is the default font color of that link? So right now I have this dark blue. That's good for us today. All right, the next tab is rows. So if I click rows, you'll notice these gray boxes that are kind of some guidelines for adding columns to your template. So For example, let's say I want to add 2 images side by side. What I can do is click and drag one of these 2 columns. I'm going to do this kind of 50-50 style. And notice as I'm holding down and dragging, there's a drag it here option in certain spots. So I can drag it either above this content or right in the middle. Anywhere it says drag it here is where that's going to be placed. I'm going to put that right there in the middle. And now I have 2 placeholders here for this row. And if notice when I hover over this section, you can see row in this green flag. Whereas if I come into the middle, that flag is gone. So that's an easy way to identify whether you are customizing the entire row or what we could say is that entire container, or if you're just going to be customizing this particular image or particular text block that is inside that container. So for this case, I'm gonna have this row with 2 pieces of content in there. I'm gonna add another row down here, just a single column row. Let's put that right there. All right, and so notice once I click on a row, let's say like this one, now I get row properties. So this will be affecting this entire container. You can move entire rows. You can copy and delete entire rows. So just for example, this one up here has both an image and a text block inside of the row. I could duplicate this if I click this button up here. Notice now the entire row has been duplicated. I click the trash can to delete. And then notice at the bottom, there is a footer row, which still can be customized, but this one particular block that is the contact information, once I click on that, you'll see this slide out say content is locked. So we do require that every mass email template has contact information included. So there's not a way to remove or remove even an element of this block. So, but you can move this around. So if you wanted this in a different spot for some reason, let's say move it up here, I could do so. I'm going to keep it down here inside this left column of this 2-column row. And then you'll notice just below there is this history button. If I click here, I have my past actions that I can undo all at once, as well as redo. So if I undo a couple things here, I can click redo. But no, this is not an autosave feature. So make sure as you're working, click on this save and keep editing button. Just throughout the process, I would encourage just to get in the habit of once you make a number of changes, just click save and keep editing, just to ensure that your template is saved along the way. But there is a history button in case you need to revert back to a different version. Okay. So once we have all of our rows that we think we need in here, we can add more content. So I'm going to click this content tab. So there's 7 different types of content. So there is text, images, buttons, dividers, social buttons, custom HTML, and a video preview. So let's say I want to add another text block. I could just add that here. And notice when I click this text block, now I'm going to get a text toolbar. A lot of these buttons will look familiar, so I won't go into too much detail, just such as the font size, the font family, alignment, as well as special characters. You can also link. So if I highlight text, I can add a hyperlink, and I could link to a URL or have it send an email. So there's a couple different action items you can take when you highlight text. I can also insert a merge field. So notice up here, here's a merge field that's already being displayed. So if I wanted to add a new one, let's say instead of a formal name, I just wanted to have their name or their full name, I could backspace that out and then click Insert Merge Field. And now you're going to see every merge field that is available as in a constituent type email. So let's say I want just their name. Here I have like envelope, first, formal. So we're just going to do name, which should be their first and last name combined. I'll click insert field. Now notice there is asterisk with some curly brackets and a name inside. So as long as those are intact, I could add like a comma after, right after the asterisk there. So that should have their name and then a comma after, and that will populate with the recipient's information. So a great way to personalize an email is just to add merge fields. All right, so now that that's there, I'm going to delete this block since I'm not adding anything to it. Let's talk about images. So if I want to have two side-by-side images here, I can drag this image content here and there. Now they're side by side. And if I click on this row that's containing these columns, I want you to notice this is a multiple column row, that here under customize columns, I can actually drag this bar and this will adjust the width of each column. So for if I needed a skinny and wide picture side by side, I could do that with this action here. I'm gonna keep this right at the 50-50 mark. If I can get that back to where it was, perhaps I'll just hit the undo button. And there we go. 2 and 10, 8 and 4, 6 and 6. There we go. All right. So in order to add an image, I can click Browse. This is going to pull up my file manager. Notice there's two folders right off the bat. I'm going to click the My Files folder. You can add multiple folders with this icon here. I can search for folders here. I can see them in rows or in tiles with these two options, as well as sort by last modified date or the name of the files. But if I want to upload images into this particular folder, I can just click upload, and that will bring up my computer's file explorer. And I can select an image to upload from my device. So that should upload Blossom. There she is. I can also click search free photos. Here we have high quality stock photos that you can use for free. So if I want to search any, let's just say people helping each other, I click help. Here we have so here I can have some stock photos if I want to include some. How about this puppy getting some help from volunteers here? And that should then add that stock photo into my folder here. So now I can use either of these. So I'm going to just select, how about this puppy here? I'll insert and I'll click browse again. It should pull up the same folder. Let's put this horse that's also getting some help. All the animals. All right. So now I have two images side by side. If I click on one image, note it's a little faint, but notice there is a green border across the image I've selected. So I know I'm working on this photo now. And if I go to the right side, you can see content properties. I can do some customization to this image. So right now it's an auto width, but I could change the width of that photo here with this slider. The alignment of the photo, alt text. This is for accessibility, as well as a great thing for SEO, research engine optimization. If you post your email newsletter on your site or share it on social platforms, but you can add alt text here. And then you can also add an action. So if someone was to click on this image, do you want something to occur? So in this case, maybe I want a web page to open when they click on this image here. So I could, next in this URL, I could just put up our website here, or I could even link a file. So if I wanted to share like a PDF or share another document, once they click on this image, let's say, I could link file and I could select which file I'd like to open on in their browser when they click on that. I'll just leave this as a URL for now. And you'll see another option for padding. So if I wanted to have a little bit of space around this photo, let's say I don't want them just buddied up like this. So what I can do is click padding, and all sides, I'm going to just add 10 pixels of padding. So notice now this adds 10 pixels of border or padding, I should say, around this image. So I could do the same thing for this. I'm going to leave this blank for now, but for padding, let's just add 10. So now those are a little more clean and right next to each other. You'll notice that this these two options down here. If I click on an image, I can choose to hide elements, whether it is viewed on a desktop or mobile device. So let's just say I wanted to hide both these images from a mobile view. I could hide on mobile for both of these. So that way only a desktop user would see these two pictures side by side. I'm going to just clear that out for now, just for today's class. And the last thing with images is notice there's a change image button and an apply effects and more. So there is some customizations you can add. So if I wanted to click apply effects, I won't go into great detail here, but fairly self-explanatory. I could add some text overlay or shapes or border. I can even draw on the image. All that to say, I can apply those effects and save that image. It will save as a new version of the image when you apply those effects. All right, so that is images. Let's say I want to add a button down here in this blank placeholder. So I'll click button, drag, and release. Now I have a button. If I click on the button, I can change the text, and you'll notice a small text toolbar. So let's just say, get involved. Let's capitalize that I. There we go. And I could bold this. I could even increase the font size if I want. And then notice on the right side under content properties, here I have, once again, my action section. So when someone clicks on this button, I want to take them to our site. I highly recommend whenever you add a URL to this action section that it includes the full protocol. So that HTTP or the HTTPS : //. That just ensures that no matter what device they're opening up your email on, that link is going to work properly. In many cases, it will be fine, but if you really want to guarantee success, I would recommend that full protocol added to that URL. So that is my action for this button. So it's going to send them to this link. I can change the background color of my button here if I want this to be green, as well as the text color, the alignment, if I want it on the left side aligned, center, letter spacing, border radius. If I want more of like a pill-shaped button, I can just increase this to say like 50. So now I have like a more of a pill-shaped button, as well as padding and some border options that most of the content has those options available. All right, so that's to add a button. I click back to content. There is divider. Pretty straightforward. If I click divider, I can drag this here. This will add just a small line, and I can add some customizations to that. Let's say instead of solid, I want a dotted line. I could increase the weight of that line, as well as the color, the width. Maybe I only want it to be about halfway through. Lots of customization. Sky is the limit with a lot of these. So that's a divider. The social buttons. So these are pretty nifty. So if I click and drag, I'm gonna put this down here by the contact information. Now, if I click on this content, I have my content properties again. And notice I can choose a selection or a collection of my social icons. Instead of these full color round objects, maybe I want something that's a little more subtle. So maybe I want like these dark gray circles, or I could even do like light gray. And then here I can add your social handles. So facebook.com, I could do like Bloomerang Tech. I can type today. So you want to add your organization's social URLs in each of these. That way, when they click on either of these icons, it will take them right to that social page. You can also add other icons. So maybe if I don't want my LinkedIn on there, but I do want, let's say, oh, who knows? It could be like I believe this is a Vimeo icon here. There we go. So maybe I want to link our Vimeo. So you can add other social icons as you see. All right. As well as some alignment options if I want to space those out a bit. There we go. All right, so that's the social icons. And the next piece of content, whoops. Notice if I can click this green arrow, that will collapse this these three menus over here. So if you need a little more space just to view and type, you can click this green circle here. HTML. So if I drag this HTML element, let's just say right here for now, it'll say I'm a new HTML block. This might look a little daunting to some users, but so this is recommended for anybody that has HTML experience. You can add in a custom code. So one use case for this would be if you have a designer create an email template for you and they send you an HTML file. You could just paste that HTML file in here and get the majority of that email template. You might have to do some tweaks as far as maybe the sizing or the width, but ultimately you can add custom HTML into this block. So I won't have any for that right now, but that is available. And then the last one is this video content. So I click and drag this. Let's just put this near the bottom. If I click on this content, notice there is a video URL. So what I can do is add a YouTube or Vimeo URL here. So let's see if I can find one real fast. I think I pulled that page down. But essentially, if I add a YouTube or Vimeo link, I just want to show this off. It will add a preview of that video automatically to your, all right, there we go. Let's just add this one. All right, so here's a YouTube video. So if I click enter, it will automatically add a preview here for us. And I can add a play icon. So let's say instead of the light, I'll do dark. And maybe I want it pretty large. And I can even have it be like a rectangle. Let's just do that. So this won't play in the email inside their inbox. That is just a rule for mass email in general. It's not just a Bloomerang thing, but any mass email provider, embedded video, embedded audio, it's not something that is capable in today's world of mass email. So instead, this is just an easy way to have a preview load of the video. And when they click on this preview image, it will take them directly to this YouTube or Vimeo page and play the video in another tab. But just an easy way to add video content into your emails. So that is there. And once you're happy with the design, I know it's a little crazy for today's class. I'm just trying to show off every piece of content we have. Now we can move to this section. So there's prior to sending it, we highly recommend that you go through some of these tools here. So first, there's the readability test. It's probably gonna be pretty bad today since I'm using a lot of placeholder text. But if I click readability, it's gonna scan the text in my email template, and it's gonna look for the U test. It's encouraged to use twice as many U as we words. You want to make sure you're really enticing the reader to get involved. And then there's also the Flesch Kincaid reading level. You want to keep things around the 6th to 8th grade level. It looks like ours is right at the 6th grade level. You can read more about those from these links here. But just a quick scan just to make sure you're on track for an email that is going to be able to be scanned and read easily from your recipients. So there's a readability test. I can click send test up to 3 emails. So if I want to send maybe one to myself, a colleague, and maybe my manager just to look over, I can add their emails here and click send. And doing so will send a test email. The merge fields will not be filled out since you're not sending it to an actual recipient. So that is the one key difference with the test emails is you will not have the test data filled in from your donors, but you'll at least get a good idea of how it's going to show up in your inbox, whether the subject line looks okay, all of that. This is a really handy feature. Click preview layout. So here I can see a quick snapshot of what this email may look like. And I can click this desktop, or I can also click mobile here. I want you to notice a few things. One that in our design, we had these two images side by side. If I click mobile, all of our templates with this designer are mobile friendly. So notice how the text didn't shrink at all. Rather, it stayed large enough to be read on a mobile device. And it knows that the images, instead of getting squished and remaining side by side, it stacked them automatically, so it can still be viewed nicely on a skinnier mobile device. So you can change some of those aspects. So if things need to stay locked a certain way, if I click X, for example, if I wanted to have this, if I click on this row, notice I can do not stack on mobile. So now if I go to my preview and mobile, notice those are now side by side. So you have some options. There's lots of ways to customize these email templates. So that's the preview layout. And then last is the get HTML button. So if I click this, this will generate, I'm not sure if you can see my downloads bar, but this just added an HTML file to my downloads folder. So if I wanted to, let's say there's a request to put your newsletter on your website, an easy way to do that is just to grab the HTML. You could send that to your web person or web designer, and then they could just simply copy and paste the HTML onto your web page. So handy feature there as well. Okay, so once we are all set with our design and we feel good, I always encourage you to double check the filters. So kind of work back. So click filter. For this case, I want to send to all my constituents that are active in my database. So this will be fine. And then make sure our details look good. So my subject line is fine, the from email, everything's all set. So again, allow blank merge fields. In this case, I'm gonna check, leave this unchecked, because if someone doesn't have a name, I don't want to just have a comma there. I want to make sure it populates with a name. So I'm gonna leave this unchecked. All right, so once I'm ready, I'll click save and you'll notice there's three options. There's preview, keep editing, and go to email home. I'll click preview. And once that takes a quick second, there we go. Here's the preview page. I want us to notice this box in the top left. So of the constituents that were found in my database, so there was 391 from the filters, it's going to automatically look for constituents that have an email address. So one thing I see people kind of not being quite as efficient with their time is they'll try to filter out on the filter tab people who have email addresses or opted out. There's really no need, because our email tool will just do that automatically. So we filter out and only look for those that have an email address. And then notice it has emails that were skipped. So we skipped 64. And the reason we're skipping those 64 is you can see they either didn't have a valid email address, so maybe it was just typed in incorrectly, or who knows, or it could just be failed to get by our spam filters. They may have unsubscribed, so they might be opted out, or they've opted out of that particular email interest. So in this case, I selected the Giving Tuesday email interest. So if someone was opted out or did not select Giving Tuesday, they would be skipped. And like we said with the skip merge fields, if there was a merge field that was required and that failed, then that would also get skipped. So just a quick way to see how many you're going to be sending to. So I'm going to be sending 95 emails after it's all said and done. All right, so I'll click recipients. Here I can see a quick list of the recipients it's going to be going to, and click skipped recipients. So here I can see those 64. So either bad emails, I can see opted out, or in this case, they had no matching email interests. Okay. And then here's my design preview. So I can see just a quick glance of, and notice this will be filled in with constituent information. So in this case, Acme Core, right here, I can click through with these arrows to see each email as these recipients would see their information populate. All right, so once that is all set, what I can do is either click make changes if I need to go back to my template and adjust things, or I can click send, and I can either send right now, or I can click schedule for later. If I click schedule for later, Here I can select a frequency. So I can either do daily, weekly, or once. So I could schedule this once on a particular day in the future. Maybe I want to send this just on Friday morning, let's say, at 8 a.m. I could send this just once and it'd be done. If I wanted to send this on a recurring basis, I could select, let's say, daily. A great use case for a daily frequency is if you have online donations that you want to just send out a personalized email to them as they come in. You could have an email go daily set on a certain time. So maybe daily at 11. It's your call. So in this case, maybe I'm going to send right away. So I'm going to click cancel. I'm going to click send now. It's going to give you, are you sure? So you can think about it. You still have time to think. I'm going to click yes. And it's off. All right, so email is being sent. It's done. Go back to my email dashboard. Now let's just take a quick peek at tracking. I know we're getting close to time. I want to make sure I save some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go to this one from earlier, just so we can see a tracking example. There we go. So here with tracking, notice we can see it launched. This is one from earlier today, but I can see it was queued up for sending, sent, and then I did have some opens. Here's my deliverability percent. So 92 were delivered, 3% of them were dropped, and 5% were bounced. Essentially, dropped and bounced mean there was an issue with the inbox rejecting that email. And there are, in cases, if I click like dropped, we can provide the reason. So if an address bounces too many times, it will eventually get dropped. So I can see, for example, these three bounced too many times where they dropped. And you can export this list to Excel. So if you wanted to go through those email addresses after the fact, maybe do some manual cleanup, this would be an easy way to do so. And then of those that were delivered, so of the 95 that got delivered, what were the open stats? So here I can see of the 95, I had 61%, which is really great, open my email. So I can see here each recipient. I can also export this list to Excel, or I could even search for a particular person. And then on this right side, we can see how many clicked the link, and then the clicked links, or the most, which links performed the best in my email template. So let's say I want to go, another fun thing is if I click on one of these names down here, this is going to pull up the email interaction. So this, once you send a mass email, we automatically add an interaction to that constituent's timeline. So notice on like Doug Banks here, right here I have a mass email. So I'll click on the mass email interaction. And down here there is, so here's the interaction itself with the purpose and the subject of the email, tracking stats. Right here under generated email, if I click on this link, I can see the email exactly as Doug saw it in his inbox. So I can choose to download this particular email if I need that for my records, or if I needed to share that with somebody, or go back to the interaction itself with this button here. Okay, last thing I want to try to sneak in is reporting on your mass emails, just in general. So if I wanted to report on and download a report of those, if I click report icons, go to report list, and then I'm going to start a new report, build from scratch. So I want to use an interaction report because since we're dealing with interactions on a timeline, I'm going to click interactions, and I'm starting with a list of every interaction in my database. So now what I could do is, let's say I want to filter only by those save the date template, and click add filter. I can go to subject. Subject contains save the date. Click OK. I think I have 2 emails that were sent today with save the date. And this is actually a good example because we can see, so here's the one that we sent together right here, save the date Giving Tuesday. And earlier today, I had one with save the date in the subject line. Notice it was just save the date. So what I could do, just for a quick way to organize my emails, is I can click subject and then group by this column. And so now I have all my 101 that were save the date that were sent earlier. And then I have the ones here that we just sent together, this save the date Giving Tuesday. And then I could add other columns such as links clicked, or has any clicked links if I want to see if there's any links that were clicked. So right, for the example here, this person clicked on the YouTube link. So just a quick way to have a report on your mass emails. So you could choose to do this for one email template or multiple. There's a variety of ways to run a report on mass emails. So, okay, I think that is everything I wanted to get through, and we have about 9 minutes. So I'm happy to go through some questions. So I know that was probably like drinking from a fire hose if you are getting started with emails today, but I hope that you had some tips and tricks that you can apply today. I'm going to pull up just the chat and the QA real quick and see if I can go through any of these. Diana, were there any that were outstanding that we need to go through?
Thanks, Scott. So far, we've gotten all the questions answered, but we do still have some time. So folks, if you still have questions out there, please let us know.
Okay, yeah.
I did want to bring this up to you and give a broader answer for everyone. If I am happy with the Bloomerang emails, do I need to use MailChimp? Like, what's the big difference?
Yes, that is a great question. That can tend to be an area of confusion of, well, I'm happy with what we're doing. Why is MailChimp kind of in the mix here? So the MailChimp integration is there for if you prefer MailChimp's designer tools and some of their reporting tools. We've made it available to where you can push your constituent lists and your constituent data to your MailChimp account. That way you can design an email in MailChimp, and then from there, that will communicate interactions back to your database. So long story short, if you like MailChimp more, if you like MailChimp's design tools more than our design tools, then the MailChimp integration is a great fit. If not, if you don't have MailChimp, or if you prefer our email editor and our email experience, then there's no reason to jump to the MailChimp integration. So a lot of our features are go hand in hand with what MailChimp offers too. So there's quite a bit of overlap, but great question. Definitely something that if you are interested in learning more, we have a MailChimp class that you can watch a video on. I lead that one as well. So if you enjoy my very dry humor at times, then feel free to check out that class too. So yeah, any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the only way to insert a video through Vimeo or YouTube?
So another great question. You can still add video links from other places, but in order to have it automatically create a preview, it will need to be a YouTube or Vimeo link. That's just the way the tool works. So if you're hosting the video maybe on your website, or if it's on another channel or platform, what I would recommend is, if I go back to like our email design real quick, let's say one is on a different platform or you just host it on your website, I would just take a screenshot, or if you have another thumbnail image of that video, just add an image content here. Let's just say, for example, my video is about helicopters here. So if I want to add this thumbnail here, it's just a matter of, I can click on this image again, and then for the action, have the action link to your web page or the other platform that's hosting that video.
Wonderful. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
If someone hits the reply to the email and the email recipient sees that it's the Bloomerang one or the Bloomerang mailman, where does the reply go to?
Yes, another great question. So if they, from this details, if you do use, let's say like a Gmail, here we go. So notice there's this warning here. If you use a free domain, that's probably the best way of saying it. So like a @Gmail or @Yahoo, not a custom domain that you've purchased, we will replace the free email with our authenticated domain. So notice instead of scottmoran@gmail, it will be replaced with my org name @mailman.bloomerang-mail.com. However, even if they receive the email from this address, it will still link back to this from email. So in either scenario, the replies will go back to this from email. Great question, though.
Wonderful. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Can you show us again how to resize an image after you've uploaded it?
Sure. Yeah. So let's say for this one, maybe it's too large. One quick way is I can just click on the image itself. So it's highlighting the border here. And then under content properties, instead of auto width, so auto width means it's going to take up the entire width of the container it's in. So since I have a one column row here, it's going to take over this whole width. I could uncheck this and I could drag this slider, and now I could resize this without even needing to upload the image again. So this is just within the designer itself, and I could even align this however I want, like this. Maybe I just want it like 50%. But if I did want to actually resize the image entirely, I could click Apply Effects, and there is a resize option here. So perhaps I wanted to adjust how the aspect ratio. So maybe instead of, this would kind of, if I unselect this aspect ratio, I can kind of squish this image. Doesn't look great, but just as an example. So that would be one way to fully resize the image.
Awesome. And this also applies to if you upload your logo as an image file, you can use the same technique to resize that image.
That is correct. And the images can be, yeah, JPEG, PNG, GIFs, other files, as far as the image blocks. So you had to make sure your logo is in one of those formats.
Wonderful. Scott, Tina has noticed that they have some constituents whose email addresses were marked as bad. How does that happen? Why does that happen? And what can they do to fix it?
Yes. So Bloomerang does perform an automatic scan when you enter an email into the database. So once that is entered and saved on that constituent record, we automatically scan it against a number of services to see if it's on any spam lists or block lists, or where maybe they are spam reporting email addresses. It is not 100%. There are times where emails might have been on a list at some point, and maybe recently you've noticed that you're able to send those personally. There is a difference between emails and how they interact with mass email services versus just one-to-one emails. So that tends to be a question that comes up with our support team is, why I just sent them an email yesterday personally, but now it's marked as bad. And that could have just been from mass email services reporting a spam reporting address. So what you can do is, if there is an email address that you've noticed or a domain like Hotmail, where in mass they're being marked as bad, I'd encourage you just to reach out to our support team, and they can swiftly resolve that for you. They can look into what might be causing that email to be flagged, and they can even undo that flag for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scott. I think that brings us up to speed with all of the questions that we have.
Yeah, I think that is that. I know we're right at the last few seconds. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the participation today, the great questions. So get out there, make some email templates for Giving Tuesday, get ahead of the game and schedule them. And looking forward to see some beautiful emails coming out from our customers. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we will catch you at the next Academy class. Take care, everyone.